Okay, now that I've had the chance to really gather my thoughts on the matter of this sign and trade for Lauri Markkanen, I wanted to do a more in-depth video on the specifics of this trade and what it means for the Chicago Bulls, but also even for Lauri Markkanen as he now heads to Cleveland for the next 4 years, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, guys, as I mentioned in my video, where I did a very brief recap of the trade after the news broke. So I'm out of town this weekend on a family trip, and because it's really a downtime in the NBA, weeks after free agency and weeks before the start of training camp, I figured I likely wouldn't be making any videos, and so I didn't bring my microphone, so I apologize for the poor sound quality, but nevertheless, when big news breaks, as it does with this one for the Bulls, I have to make a video on it and didn't want to wait until I return home. So, as I'm sure everyone is aware by now, after weeks and weeks of hearing nothing on the status of Lauri Markkanen and his restricted free agency, after countless rumors of teams that were interested in him from the Hornets, the Spurs, the Mavs, the Timberwolves, a team that hadn't been linked to him at all, not publicly anyway, the Cleveland Cavaliers made an offer to Markkanen. But of course, in order to make the salary work in which the Bulls could actually afford, I guess I should say the Cavs could actually afford Markkanen, the deal had to be completed in the form of a sign-and trade, and in this instance, the Bulls sent Markkanen to the Cavs in a deal worth $67 million for 4 years, and it was through a 3-team trade in which the Cavs would send Portland Larry Nance Jr., while the Bulls would receive Derrick Jones Jr., Portland's first-round pick in 2022, which is lottery protected, and a 2023 second-round pick from the Cavs. Now, as you guys know, I always try my best in these instances to view this as objectively as possible and as unbiased as possible, which of course isn't always easy when you're a diehard Bulls fan. But I honestly can't see any way how this isn't an incredible return for the Bulls in exchange for Lauri Markkanen. Now, I know a few of you in the comments from my last video mentioned how they didn't think that this trade was really all that great and how they could have, or should have anyway, gotten more for Lauri Markkanen, or even just potentially used Lauri coming off the bench, because now we're really thin at the 4 and we could have used his scoring off the bench. And yes, these are all true. And I even mentioned in my video yesterday before this news was announced that I was slowly coming around to the idea of Markkanen staying on the Bulls and taking the qualifying offer and giving the Bulls that needed depth off the bench. But we all knew that wasn't going to happen. Like, Lauri is worth more than $9 million for a qualifying offer. You can hate on him all you want for the last 2 seasons of his play, but he's still a good shooter and a stretch forward, which is a coveted skill set in today's NBA, and he was going to get himself an offer of some kind, more so than the $9 million qualifying offer. What you have to remember is that it was very possible that the Bulls were going to lose Markkanen for nothing when free agency opened. It was possible that a team was going to overpay him, make him a very high offer, and the Bulls weren't going to be willing to match. But with the free agency landscape drying up, teams running out of cap space, it gave the Bulls a ton of leverage, knowing that teams would only be able to sign Lauri by way of a sign-and trade to enable them to use the trade exception to operate over the cap rather than signing a free agent outright. So the fact that the Bulls, first of all, were able to get anything from Markkanen in return is a win. But then you also get 2 draft picks, one of which is a first-round pick for this upcoming season, meaning the Bulls now have 2 first-round picks in 2022. Unless, of course, Portland, that pick is actually a lottery pick. If they miss the playoffs, then it would not obviously convey to the Bulls, at least not for this year. But then on top of that, you get an expiring contract of Derrick Jones Jr., a man who is an incredible athlete, a long-arm defender, a human highlight reel, went to the finals of the Miami Heat last year, or I guess I should say in the bubble. You get all of that in exchange for Markkanen, a guy you very well might have lost anyway. That is incredible. I know some were saying, I really wish we would have gotten Larry Nance Jr. in that deal instead of Derrick Jones, but you weren't going to be able to get that first-round pick in addition to Larry Nance Jr. as a part of that deal. Larry Nance is worth more than that, and that's why Portland is essentially giving up on Derrick Jones Jr. and a first to get Nance. That's what they're netting in this 3-team trade. Now, as for each of these 3 assets that the Bulls are getting in this exchange, let me first start with Derrick Jones Jr., because I think a lot of people forget he was a key energizer off the bench for the Miami Heat when they went to the finals in the bubble. Not only that, but he was a key contributor to the Blazers this past season. He's got long arms, he's a scrappy defending wing, he hustles on every play, and he's one of the more athletic players in the league. I mean, can you imagine what some of these Bulls games are going to look like with Lavine, DeRozan, and Derrick Jones Jr., 3 of the most athletic players and top dunkers in the league, with Lonzo Ball feeding them lobs on a nightly basis. I mean, Bulls are going to be dropping highlights in every game for this upcoming season, and I cannot wait to see it. Now, the downsides with Jones Jr. is that he's not a great shooter, especially from outside. He shot 31% from 3 last season, although it is encouraging that he's improved his 3-point shot every year that he's been in the league. He's not a good free throw shooter either, shooting just 64% from the line last season, and overall, he's not the best offensive player in general, aside from the highlight level dunks and slashes to the hoop that we've seen. The other thing is, he's a small forward, which the Bulls, really needed some depth at the wing. It's nice, but they really needed more depth in the front court, especially now that they've lost Markkanen, which I'm sure the Bulls will address as they round out this roster with the 2 remaining spots that they have available. And then, they also have nearly $6.4 million in cap space. Who knows? Maybe the Bulls will have signed a power forward by the time this uploads. That seems to be a common occurrence for me based on what happened yesterday. But let's also talk about the picks the Bulls also received in this exchange. More importantly, the first-round pick, because getting this pick was important for a couple of reasons. One, the fact that the Bulls have very few first-round picks over the course of the next 5 years, so snagging a first-round pick is key. Not only that, but this now means the Bulls will have two first-round picks for this upcoming draft. So all of the talk in the media that this Bulls team mortgaged their whole future on subpar older all-stars and Vucevic and DeRozan, well, we can remind them now that we actually have 2 first-round picks this upcoming season. Now, the pick from Portland is lottery protected, so I'm sure all Bulls fans will be cheering for the Blazers to make the playoffs this season, so that pick is actually conveyed to us. And knowing Portland's history, they do a pretty good job making the playoffs, but not really being one of the best teams in the league. So that pick very well could go between the 16 to 20 range, depending on where they finish in the standings, rather than it being a very late first rounder like one of the top teams in the league. However, that could drastically change if the Blazers do decide to blow up the team and trade Damian Lillard, which would all but guarantee that the Blazers would be a lottery team and the Bulls would no longer get that pick. However, they would get it the following season, but I actually haven't seen the details of how that would be conveyed yet and whether or not there would be future protections on other years, say top 5 protected in 2023 or top 3 protected in 2024. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Let me know in the comments if you guys have actually heard anything on that. But the other reason getting this first round pick is important is because that pick could very much be used as insurance for the Bulls in the event they are fined or penalized in the ongoing investigation around the sign and trade for Lonzo Ball, should they have to forfeit a first-round pick. Well, now they have one that they weren't expecting. That would still be very unfortunate because you never want to lose a first-round pick for absolutely nothing. It's one thing to lose first-round picks in exchange for an all-star caliber player, but to lose it because of their mishandling and tampering in free agency, that would be really tough to swallow. But I think in any event, if the Bulls did have to forfeit that pick, well, then you have to look at it as they got Derrick Jones Jr. and a second-round pick for Markkanen. And now they also don't have to lose the very first round pick that they have, or I guess next year's 2022 first round pick and 2024. They'll still be able to keep those picks rather than giving it up and not having a first round pick until 2024. The other thing that's great about this first round pick is that the Bulls could certainly use it as trade bait to make another move, whether it be this offseason, during this upcoming season, or even next offseason leading up to the draft. Like, the Bulls already have their own first round pick, and if we're in win now mode, you could easily trade that first round pick for an established player, and the Bulls would actually be allowed to trade this pick unlike their own because of the Stepien rule, where you can't trade consecutive first round picks, since the Bulls already traded their 2021 and 2023 first round picks. So there would be huge benefits to the Bulls landing this first round pick in the trade. And then, of course, the second round pick, obviously not as valuable, but you can't go wrong in getting another pick, especially when you have an executive in Arturas that is known for finding hidden gems in the second round. And of course, it's another asset to trade should they need to. The other thing I will say is, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of the Bulls trying to flip Derrick Jones Jr. for another piece. I don't think that is going to happen because it was rumored that the Bulls had been interested in Jones before, and now that they've finally been able to land him, but it wouldn't shock me if the Bulls even used Jones and the first round pick and just flip that in another big trade. I know it was reported that the Bulls do plan to keep Jones and use him in the rotation, which I'm sure will end up being the case, but I also just, again, would not be shocked if Arturas has some more magic up his sleeve to move some of these additional assets. Now, as for Lauri Markkanen, I tweeted this yesterday. I've expressed this a lot on the channel. I do still think Markkanen has potential, and honestly, I am sad that things didn't work out for him in Chicago, because as Bulls fans, he showed so much promise coming into the league, having a great rookie season, an even better sophomore season. He was looking like he was going to be the Bulls franchise cornerstone. Then injuries hit him, he regressed under Jim Boylan, and the Bulls traded for Vucevic, who didn't fit alongside Markkanen in the starting lineup because of their lack of defense in the front court. And really, ever since the trade deadline, the writing was on the wall that the Bulls likely would be moving on from Markkanen. I do wish him the best, though, and I think in a new environment, one in which he'll likely get more playing time with a team like the Cavs, will be a good place for him to restart his career. But I want to know what you guys think, though. What were your thoughts on this sign and trade that involved these three teams? How do you feel about what the Bulls were able to get in return from Markkanen? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.